Last time we talked about the basics of the modern worldview, but we now need to look at its relationship to the Christian faith and Christianity's relationship to it, because it still shapes our worldview today, and not in a good way. The people in the 19th century like to sort things out into categories. I suppose it's a byproduct of looking at the world through a rationalist lens. And they like to generate a lot of dichotomies. A dichotomy identifies and creates oppositions between two ideas. One example would be faith and reason. There are some so-called binaries that are more or less legit. Animal and vegetable, bigger than a bread box, smaller than a bread box, night and day. But not all of them are that clean. Even the idea of night and day is problematic because what do we do with dawn and dusk? So a lot of dichotomies are false dichotomies because they simplify too much or just don't make sense. Still, people hold on to them. Add to this love of categorization the impulse to secularize, and you get some very powerful dichotomies, false dichotomies, that reinforce the ideas of secularism. Here's just a partial list of the ones that concern us here. So you see how all this can play out in our society. Make two categories and make one superior and the other inferior. So reason is separated from emotion, and then reason is considered the superior of the two. Let's look at the dichotomy that separates public from private. Of course, we have something like a public life and a private life. The public life can include the things that we all share, like government and education, and the workplace and the marketplace. But modernity added to the public sphere the idea that it's ruled by reason. And then the private sphere became the place of personal beliefs, opinions, and cultural particularities. These were the things that were not ruled by reason. And then they're completely separated. Public is superior and private is inferior, and neither the twain shall meet. The public sphere is the place of rational discourse using rational principles. And this will lead to agreement without that much conflict. And the private sphere is where all the religion goes, the private stuff, the divisive stuff, the irrational stuff. But it can't do much damage there because it's locked away in its cage. You can still hear the assertion of this principle in the comment sections across the internet. Don't try to impose your personal beliefs on others. What this really means is you can't take stuff from the private part of your life to the public part. Our American friends are familiar with the separation of church and state. It's the same kind of idea. But if you think about it for just a few seconds, you realize that this dichotomy doesn't really work. The public-private dichotomy is a false dichotomy. We are whole persons, and we can't do anything but live out of every aspect of ourselves simultaneously. It's impossible not to bring my private beliefs into the public sphere. They go with me wherever I go. Here's an example. Imagine one politician who believes that stable families are a benefit to society. Another politician believes that individual freedom is of benefit to society. Both these opinions are rationally justifiable. One of these politicians may be religious. One of these politicians may be divorced. These things and 1,000 others influence their feelings about divorce. So when voting on a bill to make divorce easier in their jurisdiction, it is impossible for either of them to leave their own personal beliefs at home, out of their vote. And it's silly to expect them to. Still, we live and talk and think as if these dichotomies were true. The modern secular person puts public over private, reason over faith, and secular over sacred, etc. The interesting thing is that many Christians accept these dichotomies. They just invert them. Instead of secular over sacred, they go sacred over secular. And they don't think about the legitimacy of the separation in the first place, the illegitimacy. This is a worldview issue. We are adopting a way of thinking that is unlit by the light of the gospel. It's like we're placing an Asherah pole next to the altar in the temple of the Lord. My next video on this subject will be digging deeper into this idea, the sacred-secular divide or Christian dualism, and how it infiltrates our thinking and the church. In a nutshell, dichotomies limit the sovereignty of God. God gets only the sacred sphere, the church and the family and stuff, and the secular is the part of our life where Jesus isn't Lord. Saying, I don't listen to secular music, can be a way of saying that there is a part of life over which Jesus does not reign. We need to see the world as if the physical and the spiritual world are intertwined, not separate. And you know how well that's going to go over in secular society. But we are not called to please secular society. We are called to live faithfully in it and be a people that see that nature is being lit up by a light from beyond nature. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.